Hi, I'm Barry. We've now wallpapered the ceiling, that's dried off. I'm thrilled with it, I think it looks amazing, the pattern up there. Okay, so now we're going to look at papering our feature wall. When we look at the ceiling line up there, we've just brought the paper just round the corner, just so it sits on our feature wall. If we was going to be painting that, then we wouldn't do that, we'd have trimmed that up nice and neat. Okay, so we've been given this this paper by I Love Wallpaper. Okay, it's one you need to think about just a touch, but once you break it all down, it's dead simple, dead straightforward to put up. So we're going to be looking at something called centering, and centering the pattern. Okay, so there's a couple of different things you need to think about here. Okay, so we found the exact centre on our wall, which is here. Okay, now I've put this on this sheet of MDF. Okay, so if you haven't got one of these, you can just do it on the floor. Just make sure you sweep the area first, okay, in case there's any tiny little bits on it, you don't want them on the back of your paper. Okay, so if I look at the pattern here, okay, it gives, when I look at the pattern that we've got running through this paper, and it might not look a lot now, it looks quite random, but actually when it sits on the wall, it'll stand out. Okay, so you really need to do a little bit of planning here. Okay, so I can see the sort of main pattern that's running through this is this sort of kind of fleur-de-lis sort of pattern that sort of happens here. Okay, so you've got this sort of like this pointed section with these sweeping areas coming off it. Okay. Then if you look at the very edge of the paper, okay, so we've got one there, okay, and then one here as well, and then one the other side. If I was to put my paper straight from the middle line, straight on this paper there, which a lot of people do, a lot of people make this mistake, so DIYers make this mistake, okay, it's going to make the pattern slightly off balance. Okay, so when we stand back and look at the actual wall, okay, it's going to give it sort of this effect. I'll just give you a little diagram. I know you like my diagrams. Okay, so that's our wall. Okay, and we're just going to pretend that these, just do it like roses. Okay, so that sort of be the middle. So if it's slightly off centre, okay, so if I sort of like that. Okay, so see how the pattern doesn't balance up, that's just like a rough sketch so you can sort of see it. Okay, so what we need, and that would be that particular drawing there, is what would happen if we didn't put that, that's like the centre of it there. Okay, so we're going to be using this, so that would be so you can see how it's balanced out correctly. Okay. And it's very, very simple to do that. Again, it makes it a lot easier when you just drop it down on the floor and just have a look at it. Okay. So this paper, it's 52 centimetres wide. So I'm going to measure. So it's just 26 centimetres. So we'll just check it. So that's going to be the middle of our pattern down to this very, very point, just in case it isn't just a few mil off. So yeah, that's dead on 26 or 260 mil, depending on what you're working in. Okay, so I'll just come off this centre line that we've got. Measure my 26, exactly there. Okay, so I'm going to draw a straight line here with my spirit level. Okay, and that's where my first piece is going to sit. So that sort of fleur-de-lis pattern, okay, will sort of come around there like that. Okay, and then that should give us a perfect balance as we work either side from it. Okay, so we stand back, okay, the pattern should look perfectly set out, and we'll know how good I've done it by the time when we finish. Okay, there's another thing you need to think about as well, and this is again another type of balance in the pattern. Okay, well, so something slightly different is we have to look at the top of our wallpaper. Okay, the ceiling lines can go up and down, okay, and we want to try and take the eye away from that. So if you imagine this is our sort of ceiling line as an exaggerated example, And we'll use these large flowers again. Okay, so if I just like say that that's the middle of the flowers. Okay, so we'd have it. Okay, and especially if the ceiling goes up. Okay, then you lose some of the pattern. You'll see it there. And it can look odd, it takes your eye away from the paper. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll just drop this down again. And again, we'll use these flowers as an example. Okay, this will then take your eye away from this line, or from your ceiling line that goes up and down. So instead of me just putting my thinking about, I'm just going to put my wallpaper straight from the top of the paper, straight from the top of the roll. I'm going to look, just imagine this is our ceiling line. If I had that very, very tip there on our first piece, okay, and then the ceiling line went down, we would lose some of this pattern. Okay. So I'm just going to bring this up, okay, only by a few mil, okay, or by 10 mil. Okay, and by having my piece of paper, that's going to be the top of my paper here. Okay, and if the ceiling line does go up and down, that's just going to give us a little bit of play, because this again is the main part of our pattern for the wallpaper. Okay, right, it's a drop match pattern. We've discussed that in previous videos if you want to refer back to those. And this is where we have our pieces number 1s and number 2s. So refer back to that video on how to cut your wallpaper. Okay, right, I'm going to get it all cut up, get a few pieces pasted, and let's see if we can get this the perfect balance on this feature wall.